What time is it, Mr. Clock? Tick tock, tick tock. What time is it, Mr. Clock? Tell your neighbors, tell your parents, tell your family that today we're learning about time. It's time for our I can statement. I want you to repeat after me. I can identify the parts of an analog clock. Awesome job. When we look at the paper on the board, we have two different types of clocks. Which one do you think is an analog clock? Do you think it's clock A or clock B? Show me 1 for clock A. Show me 2 for clock B. Awesome. Kiss your brain. If you said clock A, you are correct. This is an analog clock. This one is a digital clock. Let me hear you say it. Analog clock. Digital clock. Awesome job. So today we're going to be focusing on an analog clock. Let's look at this analog clock. How many numbers do we see on our analog clock? Whisper it. Say it in your hand. Now let me hear you say it. Yes, 12 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What else do we have on our analog clock? Awesome. We have arrows. How many arrows do we have? 1, 2. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and we're going to talk about this later on. But we don't call these arrows. What we call these are hands. Say it with me, hands. Awesome job. Now let's look at our digital clock very quickly. What differences do you see between our digital clock and our analog clock? If you said that a digital clock does not have hands, you did a great job. Or if you said that an analog clock has hands, awesome job. What shape is my analog clock in? A sphere? No, we know a sphere is a 3D shape. Is this a square? Okay. Mr. Nieves just forgot because he hasn't been in school so long. Yes, this is a circle. Awesome. So as mentioned before, we said that today our I can statement is I can identify the parts of an analog clock. Now, I want to come over to our definition box. We have some words that we're going to be learning today in our math lesson. We have the word long hand, short hand, analog clock, and digital clock. Now, I want you guys to think about what is an analog clock. This is what an analog clock looks like. When we look at it, it has numbers, it has lines that goes all around, and it also has two, what do we call these? Yes, hands. It has 2 hands. Now let's think. In our definition box, we have something called a long hand. Now is it saying that my hand is going to be very long? No, it's not talking about these hands. What about short hand? Is it saying that I have a little bitty hand? No, it's not talking about our hands. A clock has 2 hands. These are what the clock's hands look like. The same way that our hands move, the hands on the clock also move. Awesome job. Now when we look at our hands look the same. Can you tell me the difference that you see in the clock's hands? Awesome job. One is long and the other one is short. Those words are also found in our definition box. What do you think the long hand does? Awesome job. If you said that the long hand shows the minutes, you are correct. So we can say that the long hand is the minute hand. So if the long hand is the minute hand, and we know that in time we need to have an hour and we need to have minutes, then what is the shorthand? Yes, the shorthand is the hour hand. So we would say the hour hand. Perfect. On our clock, we have two hands. The hour hand is the short one. The minute hand is the long one. So we have our analog clock left and our digital clock left. Mr. Nieves jumped ahead a little bit and input the information for our analog clock. So an analog clock is a circle that has a minute hand, which is the long one, and an hour hand, which is the short one. That's what an analog clock is. Now I'm going to challenge you. What do you think a digital clock is? Yes, a digital clock is a clock that only shows numbers. Awesome job. Are we learning about a digital clock today? No. Today we're learning about an analog clock. Say it with me, analog clock. So today we've identified that an analog clock is usually in the shape of a circle. I know Mr. Nieves doesn't have a perfect circle here, but if we look at the blue, we see that it is in the shape of a circle. We also were able to identify that an analog clock has how many hands? Yes, two hands. And these two hands are called what? We call the red one the awesome hour hand, and we call the blue one the minute hand. Now, all clocks are not going to have red and blue hands, so we would say that the short hand is the, oh, come on, you can do louder than that. The short hand is the hour hand, and the long hand is the minute hand. Awesome job. Now, if we look very closely at our analog clock, we see that it has these numbers that are counting by fives. And we also see that it has lines. Now these lines, we call them seconds. What do we call them? Yes, awesome job. So if you look at a normal analog clock, you might see one little skinny line that's moving very quickly. That's for the seconds. But we're not focusing on that. However, the seconds let the minute know that it has to move forward. Do you know how many seconds are in a minute? Yes, 60 seconds in 1 minute. Do you know how many minutes are in an hour? Yes, 60 minutes in 1 hour. Awesome job. So today what you guys are going to do when you go into your work time, you are going to build your own clock. You're going to build your what? Yes, your own clock. And I want you guys to remember, what are some things that an analog clock has? 2 hands. Awesome. How many lines does it have? Yes, 60 lines. It has a long hand and a short hand. And it's in the shape of a circle. Awesome job. When we look at our analog clock, between each of the big lines, sorry, wrong way. Between each of the big lines, we have how many lines? Well, let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So between each line, we have 5 lines. Between each of our numbers, we should have 5 lines. And when we total that, it should equal 60. So today what you guys are going to do is you are going to go back and identify your analog clock. And then you're going to be able to build your own analog clock as well. So if I wanted to build my analog clock with my friends who are home, what shape am I going to draw my analog clock? A square? Oh, please, come on. The square is my favorite shape. No? What shape then? Oh, you got to go louder than that. I didn't hear you. Yes. So I would start off with a circle. At the top of my clock, what number goes there? 60? No, let's not get confused. Yes, the number 12. Then I'm going to start. 1. What comes after the number 1? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. What else is missing in my analog clock? Let's think. Yes, 2 hands. My long hand is going to point at my 12. And if I wanted to show 4 o'clock, where would my hour hand point at? Would it point at the 8? Is 8 and 4 the same time? What time will it point at? Yes, the 4, because it is 4 o'clock. Is this going to be a long hand or a short hand? Yes, a short hand, because a short hand is my hour hand. And that is showing 4 o'clock. So today when you guys go back to do your work, what you're going to do is you're going to build your own clock, and then you are also going to get challenged to try to identify different times.